Hi everyone. Today we are going to go over lesson 27. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to complete an income statement and you should be able to compute corporate income tax. We're going to start off with some key terms. First one is profit and loss statement, which is basically an income statement. We'll go into more details in the next slide for this. Taxable income is the income that the federal government looks on as taxable, usually the gross income minus certain business expenses. Accounting period is the time covered by a financial statement. Loss is the difference between the amount initially invested and the money received from the sale of a product when the amount initially invested is greater. Net income is money left over after subtracting expenses from gross profit. It is also called net profit. Income statement. As mentioned earlier, another term is profit and loss statement. It shows in details your income and operating expenses. If your gross profit is greater than your total operating expenses, your income will show a net income or a net profit. But keep in mind, if your gross profit is less than your total operating expenses, you really have a loss. So to find the gross profit, you get the net sales and subtract the cost of goods sold from it. To find the net income, remember net income is net profit. It is the gross profit minus the total operating expenses. So let's look at an example. So we have a little statement on the right side, little table, and we want to find the gross profit on sales. If you look at the table, that's really looking for the B value. So before you can find the B value, you need to know what the A value is. So to do that, we need to find the net sales, which is the A value, and the formula for net sales is the income minus the sales return and allowances. Plug everything we have in. $48,680 minus $1,253, giving us a net sales of $47,427. When we have that, we can find the gross profit by taking the cost of goods sold and subtracting it from the net sales. Plug in everything we know, and we can see that the gross profit is equal to $23,447. And for this example, we are actually done. Next one. So same numbers, but this time we are looking for the net income, which is the D value. So that means we need to know what A, B, and C are. So first two steps are exactly the same. Comes from the previous slide. So find the net sales for the first step, find the gross profit on sales for the next step. So as I said, it is the exact same number as the previous slide. Now we need to do step 3. That is finding the total operating expenses. So to find that, what we need to do is we need to add everything in the operating expenses together. That's the salary and wages, taxes, utilities, and depreciation. Plug everything we have in there. When we add them, we get $10,767. So that's really right here. $10,767. And the last step is to find the net income. And from a few slides ago, we said the net income is just the gross profit minus the total operating expenses. So we're really subtracting C from B, which is $23,447 minus $10,767. And that gives us $12,680. That is the net income for this statement right here. All right. Here's another example, very similar to the previous slide, except for this time I already gave you what the net sales is, which was the A value in the previous slide, so we didn't have to do that. Basically, we're skipping it. So the first step is to find the gross profit on sales. So same formula as before. It is simply the net sales minus the cost of goods sold. If we do that, we get $25,093. So it goes right here if you wanted to write it in there. Alright, step 2, find the total operating expenses. And again, that's just really adding all the expenses together. When we do that, we get $17,753. So that is the total operating expenses. To find the net income, we just subtract the total operating expenses from gross profit, giving us the net income of $7,340. Alright, let's have you try one out on your own really quick. Pause the video and then resume it when you are ready. Alright, let's try this out. Same thing again. We're going to find the gross profit on sales first. Subtract the cost of goods sold from the net sales, giving us a gross profit of $26,186. Next step, find the total operating expenses. So let's add all the different expenses together. When we do that, we get $16,953. Last step, find the net income. So we're subtracting step 2 from step 1, giving us a final answer of $9,233. That means the net income is that amount. Alright, here's another example. This time, I do not give you a chart, but we're basically doing the exact same thing as before. First, you can find the total operating expenses, or you can do what we did earlier and find the net, the gross profit first. It's really up to you. I decided to do this one first. So we're going to add up all the different expenses together, which is the salary, the supplies, and other expenses. So we add those three numbers together, we get $3,150. Second step is to find the gross profit. It's simply just getting the net sales and subtracting the allowances from there. When we do that, we get $6,860. Again, you can do step 1 first or step 2 first. In this case, it really does not matter. Once we do that, to find the net income, we just subtract the two numbers, the gross profit minus the total operating expenses, giving us a net income of $3,710. Alright, I want you to try one out on your own really quick. Pause the video and then resume it when you are ready. Alright, same thing as before. We can either start off with the total operating expenses or the gross profit. Again, it's really up to you, but for the sake of consistency, I'm going to find the total operation or operating expenses first. So let's add all the different expenses together. the salary wages of $3,200, supplies of $736, and other expenses of $90. Add that up, you get $4,026. Second step, find the gross profit. Net sales minus allowance, which is $7,982 minus $90, giving us gross profit of $7,892. Third step, find the net income. So we're subtracting step 2 and step 1. When we do that, we get $3,866. So that is his net income, Jesse's net income for the taco stand. All right, let's go over income tax now. So taxable income is the portion of your company's gross income that remains after normal business expenses are deducted. Taxable income can be found getting the annual gross income and subtracting the deductions from that. So here's an example. Annie's studio had a gross income of $2,185,891 for the year. The table shows its business expenses during the year. So we want to know what is the taxable income. So first, we want to add up all the deductions together. We start off with the accounting and we go all the way down to the wages. When we add all of those numbers together, we get $1,111,323. Once we do that, we can find the taxable income by subtracting the deductions from the gross income. So when we do that, we get $1,074,568. So that is the taxable income. All right, so different example, but now instead of finding the taxable income only, we have to find the federal corporate income tax. So this time I already did the deductions for you, so you don't have to calculate that, but we still need to find the taxable income first before we can find the income tax. So same thing, it's the annual gross income minus the deduction. So $248,392 minus $102,586. That gives us a taxable income of $145,806. So we have that. Now we need to find the federal corporate income tax. So the formula is the base tax plus the tax rate times the taxable income minus amount over. So what we need to do is we need to determine where in this table do we fall. We have $145,806. So that goes in between $100,000 and $335,000. So you need to determine that before we can move on. So look at what the tax is. The base tax is $22,250, and that's why I plugged that in. That comes from this number right here. So you need to be very careful what that number says. The next step is converting the 39%. So 39% converted is 0.39 times the taxable income minus amount over. So look at what it says the amount over is. It is $100,000. That's why I put that in there. And the taxable income comes from the first step. That's why we needed to find what that is. So I plug in everything. Now what I need to do is use order of operation. Do what is inside the parenthesis first. What's inside the parenthesis is $145,806 minus $100,000. When we do that, when we calculate that, we get $45,806. So now we need to multiply that by 0.39. When we do that, we get $17,864.34. Last step is to add that to the base tax, which is the $22,250. When we do that, we get $40,114.34. But keep in mind, the question says round to the nearest dollar. So we're going to round it to $40,114. So please keep in mind what the workbook or checkpoint or exam is asking of you. Alright, here's another example. Same thing we need to do as earlier. We need to find the taxable income first. So we're going to subtract the deductions from the gross income. When we do that, we get $84,229. The second step is to find the federal corporate income tax. So let's find out what row it falls in between. So it is 84,000. That means it is between $75,000 and $100,000. So looking at that, the base tax is $13,750. So remember earlier I said you need to be careful what that says. Earlier we had $22,250, but we're in a different row this time, and that row has $13,750 in it, plus the tax rate of 34%, which is 0.34, times the difference between the taxable income and the amount over. Here's the 75,000 that goes in the parenthesis. So we have that. Now let's use order of operation. Do what's inside the parenthesis first. That gives us $9,229. Multiply that by 0.34. That gives us $3,137.86. Now we need to add that to the base tax, which gives us $16,887.86. And because the instruction or the problem tells you to round to the nearest dollar, we are rounding up this time, giving us the federal income tax of $16,888. Alright, I want you to try one out on your own really quick. Pause the video and then resume when you are ready. Alright, first step, again, find the taxable income. So annual gross income minus deductions, which is $168,291 minus $129,983, giving us a taxable income of $38,308. Find the federal income or corporate income tax next. Same formula. This time let's take a look. We're at $38,308. So that actually is in the first row. So this one, be very careful. It does not give you a base tax, so I substituted 0 in there. And there's no amount over, so that really just means 0. So again, I plugged in 0. Alright, now do the same thing as before. Subtract the inside. Because it's 0, we're not really doing anything. Multiply that by 0.15. That gives us $5,746.20. And that should be it. Again, round to the nearest whole dollar. So that stays at $5,746. And that is all that we have for today. If you have any questions regarding this PowerPoint, feel free to reach out to me.